too, but also for readers to kind of say, all right, well, here's what we saw, and here's how that jigsaw fits together. And even as I was writing it, I watched all the episodes again a couple of times, and even as I was watching it, I realized things that I hadn't figured out the first time around in terms of how everything fits together. And some of the answers are given as sort of offhanded comments in some of the episodes, especially Time of the Gawker, the last Matt Smith episode. There's just sort of like, oh, well, that's because of this, or the silent creatures, the silents that look like the gray aliens are actually priest confessors. Okay, well, that might have been a great thing to fit like further back, that we kind of knew a little bit more about them when we first met them, but that might have ruined the mystery that Moffat was trying to make. And I also feel like a lot of what we saw in Time of the Gawker, if Matt Smith had stayed for another season, would have been stretched out through the whole season, and we would have seen more of exactly how that was supposed to unfold, and it all sort of got compressed into one story, and trying to sort out all the different threads of it. That's pretty much what I wrote about, is just trying to understand exactly what that whole silence thread was about, what was Madame Kavorian about. It was a fun exercise. I will note that when the book was being put together, I originally suggested, why don't we do something on the Celestial Toymaker? It's very interesting to me that the Celestial Toymaker, for being in one story in 1965, in a story that 3 episodes are missing, and it's not even really that good of a story. The Celestial Toymaker has had such a large afterlife in the extended media, from the comics, the novels, the audios, all of that stuff. That kind of fascinated me. And the editors told me at the time, well, that's kind of more of an obscure character. And we need to sort of focus on doing more of the mainstream kind of ones that people will recognize. And I was fine with that. I mean, I understood what their point was, but I did mention when I saw David Bushman, who's one of the editors at L.I. Who last fall, I said, ha, 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 well, now it looks like the Celestial Toymaker's coming back, and it's going to be Neil Patrick Harris who's playing him, who obviously is one of the most recognizable actors on the planet at this point. I said, if there's a second volume, I'm claiming the Celestial Toymaker this time. And he just kind of laughed. But he was right at the time to say that. But it just is kind of funny in hindsight.
You're psychic, Chris. You were, plugged into the Russell T Davies, network and didn't even know it.
But of course, then the episode's going to come out, and it's going to totally not be the Celestial Toymaker after all. And it's going to be something completely different. And David's point is still going to stand as it being more of an obscure character. But we'll see.
With me, just as a little aside, I mean, I thought I'd gotten everything done. And then they announced Legend of the Sea Devils. And I hadn't really, originally it was supposed to just be Silurians and Sontarans and Zygons, because they were in multiple stories. And, I mean, the Sea Devils are basically in their title story. They're kind of sort of in Warriors of the Deep. And that was it. And I was going to touch on them because they are a subspecies of the Silurians. And then suddenly we got this announcement at Legend of the Sea Devils, and I actually had to beg, and rightly so, to get an extension, which I got, so I could watch Legend of the Sea Devils and incorporate that into my essay too. So I was, sort of ahead of the curve there also, but not quite as, not as deeply as yours, because the Sea Devils are not that deep.
Then you watched the episode and regretted asking for the extension.
Yeah, well, I actually dislike it less than most people do. I think there's a good story there. I don't know what happened, but I get the feeling that a lot of it was it's weirdly edited. I think a lot of it was left on the cutting room floor for some reason.
Yeah, we spoke about that in our review of the episode. We think they probably had a 65-minute episode and then were told you've got 45 or 50 or whatever it was.
Yeah, and the other thing, I mean, because part of the crux of my essay is also more like focusing on the races themselves and, their motivations and just the physicality of them. I think the Sea Devils were great in that. The problem was there wasn't enough narrative to, really give them the kind of spotlight they wanted. And, there's a lot of confusion there. But the Sea Devils themselves, I think, are evolved really well. I mean, it's the first time we ever see them, having their own agency and having their own plots as compared to being used by the Master, being used by the Silurians. And they looked really cool. I mean, I like the concept of Silurians as, sort of pirates on the China Sea is a really cool idea. Unfortunately, they didn't get used the way they could have. And again, a lot of it was probably left on the cutting room floor, but it's a shame because it could have been a good episode. I think there's a kernel of something really interesting there.
And to read the full chapters, you can purchase World of Demons, Villains at Doctor Who at online or at bookshops. Avoid Amazon if you can. But yeah, it's obviously available for purchase if you haven't bought it yet.
What was Shane's chapter about? Remind me.
Yeah, I want to.
Which one was yours?
Mine was Capaldi area. It was about Thin Ice and Oxygen episodes, where the Doctor doesn't have a physical villain.
I remember that one. That was a good chapter.
It was, yeah. One of my best friends, who I kind of roped into getting to the book, Nancy Hudgens. She's wrote the piece on the invisible monster, so the crucifix and the monster in midnight and this and that. Almost like a companion piece to yours. So yeah, they both were really good. I mean, I just as a fan, I really enjoyed reading the book. I thought all the essays in there were really smart and really interesting and really good things to say. So I plugged the book not just because I've written for it, but I actually really liked the book. I'm proud to be part of that.
And, hopefully maybe there'll be a volume 2. I don't know what it would cover, but we'll see.
Okay, otherwise, Jan, Chris, thank you both for being here.
Oh, thank you for asking.
Thanks for having us on the show. It was fun.
Yeah, no, definitely. Always available for weddings, bar mitzvahs, and people's podcasts.
Yeah, and listeners, if you have any thoughts on what we've just spoken about, you can email us at analyzingdoctorwho@gmail.com. That's analyzing spelled with S. Or you can tweet us at analyzingdw. And we should be back in around 6 weeks' time. Until next time. Our logo is courtesy of Scott Mattison. His work can be found at planetrisecreative.com and on Twitter at planetrise. Our theme tune is by Mike Mould. We can be reached at analyzingdoctorwho@gmail.com and on Twitter at analyzingdw.